REST API Basics. What is an API? So API stands for Application Programming Interface, which is just a software or code or plugin that you can write to expose data or services of a service or a application for other software or other system to consume. APIs can be thought of as the plugin interfaces of a system, like for example the modem or the sound system you see here, where the interfaces are where the plugins for cables will be plugged in and so on. So let's take a look at REST APIs. REST is the acronym for Representational State Transfer. So REST API is really just a set of rules of how systems or software can transfer data over the web. And it uses URIs or URL endpoints, HTTP protocol, and the common JSON data format. Now, in order for data to be transferred over the internet or between systems, data must be serialized into actual text. So JSON is the standard format, and JSON is this representational state, which is the actual value of a certain data that needs to be transferred. And REST APIs are commonly used for CRUD operations. These are the HTTP verbs you hear all the time, the get, post, put, and delete, which we'll be writing in this video in a minute. So let's take a look at another example here. So APIs act on endpoints, represented by these red dots or circles on the server side here. An endpoint is really just a URI that you create on the server for other programs to consume. So when requests are made to these endpoints, the APIs will be processed and will process the data, serialize the data into JSON format, and send them back to the programs or to whoever made these requests. That's the whole idea of the REST API in its simplest form. So why use REST APIs? So there are a couple of good reasons why, and one of the main reasons is because it allows communications between a client and a server. And of course, other reasons will be like performance and flexibility, in the sense that you don't have to let people access your direct system to manipulate data. You can allow them to access your system or your data remotely through these, again, CRUD operations. So because you have complete control of your system or your data, you can shut it down anytime you want to, or you can allow or disallow whoever wants to access your system. So you can think about YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, how you can actually send data over to your account and automatically they can be updated or uploaded to the server and so on. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and create our own APIs. All right, so back here in the Visual Studio Code, I'm going to go into the back end and I'm going to modify this a little bit. Now that we're going to create our own APIs, why don't we go in the back end and create a folder to store our API? So I'm going to create a new folder and I'll call it just API. And in this API, it will have this similar model, like the controllers, models, and routes. Those will be in there as well. So I'm going to go and create a folder called controllers for inside the API. Okay, so make sure it's in there. Okay, another one for models. You can leave it as outside if you want. I want to put it inside the API here so they're all contained within their own space. And then we'll do one more for the routes. Okay, it looks like I have a duplicate here. I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and add my file in here. Since I'm here already, I'll remove that models folder. It should be on its own. It shouldn't be inside the controller. But I'm going to go here and just say create a new one called providers.models.js. Okay, and I'm going to drag this outside. It shouldn't be inside the controller. It should be in the API folder. Yes. Okay, so you have 3 folders very similar to the one outside here. So I got my models here, and so the controllers will have, so this file should be in the model. Let me drag that into the models folder. Okay, and so the routes will be similar. Let's go and create a routes file. I'm going to create a new file here. I'll call it main.routes.js so I know what it is. And then I'll also create a controller as well. I'll just call it as main controller JS. Okay. Now, we need to then modify the actual or the main app program to point to this API folder. So that means when we go to the browser and we load the site, we want to navigate to the site that has a slash, not providers, but slash API, and so on. So that means I'm going to add it to this route. So before we do that, I'm going to go and create a new route up here. So I'll call this one the API router. Require, it's going to be coming from the API folder and inside the routes. And then we have the main.route. That is the route we'll be using. And then down here in line 27, I'm going to add a new route in here. So app.use. And so when we go to the API URL endpoint, we're going to go and call the API route instead of the other one. Again, these are for, we used this in the previous examples on the browser. This API will be a little bit different, and the code will be a little bit different, although very similar in many ways. Okay, so this is all I need to do to set up my route, main route. So I can close this now. And so now in my router, main route, again, it'll be kind of similar to the other routes, but I'm going to go and add in here the Express. It'll be similar. You can copy it over if you want. I'm just going to type it in here really quick. So we still need the Express. We need the route. That would instantiate a router, and then we need the controller. So I'll call this main controller. It's coming from the controller in our API folder now, okay? Which is now I'm going to just basically in the same directory as the API. So I'm just going to go up one directory, controller / main controller. Okay, that is the main controller we're going to use. And so now my routes will be based on these HTTP verbs. Okay, this is like the post. I'll put here like the create. Create will be like post. Read will be like a get, and then put will be an update, and then delete will be for a delete. Okay, so my URL then will be something like, I'll put here, this is for the post, and this will take the URL / like for example API / providers. I will also use providers here. So the actual route will be something like this: the main URL / API / providers. That will come to this page, and if the request comes in as a post, then you want to say post here. And then again, the URL will be just providers. And the reason why I didn't put the API is because when we load the main app here, it's already include the APIs here. So this is already included, right? So after that is whatever it's inside this controller. Oops. Yeah, go ahead. So it'll be / and then providers. So that's why I put that here. Okay. So when I go to this endpoint, I'm going to load the main controller dot, I'll call it create, and we'll create that in a minute. It's a create function. That's one route. The next route is the get. So I'll put here get. This is for like getting a let's just say get all the providers. So I'll have something like route get. It'll be just providers. Again, there's no ID required. You just get everything there. So I'm going to the main controller, and I'll put here maybe like read all. Okay, I'm gonna get all the routes, all the data, and then here will be the get only one. So this would be just get one. Get only one. So the API endpoint would be API / providers / an ID like 1, 2, and 3, for example. Okay, so router get, and then providers / and then the ID would be with the colons ID, and then that's going to go to the main controller dot read. I'll call it read one, and only one data. The next one here is for update, so we'll put the put, This is, again, the API endpoint doesn't take any ID. It does take one ID. So the ID will be like, again, 1, 2, 3 here. We need to update only one record at a time, right? So then we're going to put here for the put, the endpoint will be just providers. And we're going to call the main controller dot, I'll call it update. And then down here would be the delete. We'll do a delete one provider. So the URL will be, again, will be like API/providers/ with an ID. Okay. And so router dot delete, and then the API link would be endpoint providers / and then ID, just like the get and so on. So main controller dot, I'll put here delete, maybe you call it delete one. Okay, and then we'll do one more. This will be for the delete all. So delete all providers. This is a very dangerous one. So again, the API endpoint would be just providers, no ID. So we router dot delete, and then / providers. Main controller dot delete, I'll call it all. Okay, so those are my routes. And so let's go and create the controllers for these. I'll leave this open for now. We'll go to the controllers. And then here, we're going to create, actually, before I forget, we need to export this out, right? So module that exports, and we'll put here router. So in the controller, then it will be something, again, very similar to the other controller. I just need some data. Okay, so the data will be coming from the provider's model here. So I have a data constant provider equals require, and it'll be coming from the models / providers model. And we're going to just basically copy the models over to this file here. You know, before I forget, let's do that now. Go to the models here, open that, and you can just copy everything, copy Control-A, Control-C, copy, and then paste it to the models, providers.model. It's the same one. I just put it here so that it's kind of like separated, but that's all. And you can also just, if you want, you can link it from the root model if you want, but I'll just do it separately here. Okay, so we got the models, and then now is the CRUD operation. So again, the CRUD, again, for create would be like a post. The read would be a put. No, I mean a get. Update would be the put, and then delete would be just delete. Okay, so that's the CRUD operations. Okay, so let's put in that order. So we're gonna do a post here. This is the create. Again, this is the URL for API. Put here URL API/providers, and we're gonna put that in here. So it would be a module.exports.create. Okay, I'll put a function, take the request and response, and then we'll just put that here for now. It's a placeholder. Okay, so I'm going to copy these and just put down there, right? So I'm going to copy this and paste it. That's the post. This would be the get. The get will be get all. This would be like a get all. So I would say read all. The next one here will be for a get as well. Get one. We'll put a get all here. And get one, I need ID. So like 1, 2, 3 like that. And then this would be read one. The next one here will be a, I would say the update, right? So the put, the URL, you need an ID. And then this is for update. And then we need the 2 deletes down here. This is a delete. We'll do a delete 1. Takes the ID. 1, 2, and 3. This is the delete all. and takes no ID. So this we just delete all. This is delete one. Okay, so those are our placeholders. So now we need to go ahead and implement these APIs. Okay, so first, when I'm going to go over to the main controller over here, not in the API, but in the main controllers, although they will look very similar. So I'm going to open this one here and copy some of these over here. Okay, so let's do the easy one first. When we read data, we get data, basically we just do the listing, right? So list everything there. You just need this. So I'm going to copy that from the list and go to my main controller and put it inside the read all. So if you look at read all, this is the one. So I'm going to put that right in here. Okay, but I'm not going to render on the browser though. I'm going to send it to wherever it's been sent from. So I'm going to just do a send. You can also put JSON if you want. If you send in JSON format, you put JSON here. Just make sure your data is in JSON format. But I'm going to just put send here. And what it's sending back is basically just the providers. So the providers will be that object we declare way up here on the top. This is the actual list. So I'm going to send that over to wherever it is, right? And then before we send though, we want to also issue a status. So the status for a successful request would be a 200. Okay, status 200 means it's good, and then send that over to wherever it's being requested from. So that's pretty much it for that one. Now the get one is kind of similar. If you go back to the get one, as you can see, we don't have one here, but it will be similar to the edit. When you edit, we need to find the ID, and then from the ID, we're going to find it in the list, and then send that over to a provider, and then send that off. So I'm going to copy this and go back to the main controller and put it right in here. We'll just modify this a little bit here. Okay. So when you read one, we need to get the ID, and we find the ID inside that list, and then return it as a provider, and then we're done. So basically, we're going to again send the provider to wherever it is being requested from. Again, we need to send a status. So let's go here and a status of 200. So successfully sent. We found it. We send that off. And later we'll come back and we'll do a validation here. And then now let's do a yeah. So the put will be kind of similar. Well, let's go to the easy one first again. The delete. Oh, you know what? Let's go back over here to the providers and just do the rest. So we got the delete update. So the update here, I'm going to copy this from the update, not the form. Let's see. Yeah, so this update, I'm going to copy what's inside here and then paste it to our update right in here. It will be in the put. Okay. And again, the bottom piece right here, like res dot status. If it's successful, we'll put 200 here for now. And then we're going to send off the provider, the new data that's been updated. Okay. And these are, remember, these are coming from a web form earlier. Okay. So if you do this kind of API, if you are testing like from a REST client, like a Postman or something like that, you want to modify these to have exact match like in the models here. That means, what I mean was like you say request.body.id.name. When you get to this part here is an object, right? So you can't say just request .body.state. It's not going to give you that. You have to say request.company.state. Okay, so that means these have to be changed a little bit here. So I'm going to go and just leave that for now. And so when we get the ID comes in, when we update, we are going to, let's see, what do we need to do here? I need to, yeah, change this to say not just body company, but body company dot company. and I'll show you why later. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and put it here. Like all of these would be something like this. Again, we're not sending these from a web form, so we need to match the exact same JSON structure. Okay, these can be like that. That's fine. Okay, so that's for updating. And then let's go over to the add. This would be the create. So I'm going to copy again from line 46 all the way down to line 71 and go to the add way in the top. All right, so again, down here would be a status of 200. And we're going to just say, I'm just going to send the same data back over. Okay, so up here, we had the system generate a unique ID, but usually when you create it, you can have the option of creating your own ID manually, or you have the system create it for you. I will just leave it as is for now, and then later on we can maybe do something about it, but I'll leave that as is. And so I think that looks good here. Again, down here needs to be changed to body.company.company name and so on. So I'm going to copy this again and paste it to all these company properties. Okay, and then we just push it to the providers, and then we send a status of 200, and then we're done with that one. Let's go to the delete part. So down here, when we delete one provider, again, I'm going to copy this, put it over to the delete one. We search the ID inside the providers list, return that ID here, and this is, I don't need this anymore, okay? This for like sending to the form, we're not going to need that. So whatever is coming through the provider, we're just going to send that off to the provider, to the browser, or wherever it's being requested from. Again, the status would be usually, if you put 200, that's fine too. That's okay. But sometimes you want to put a status of like, it's not there anymore, right? That means the data has been removed, successfully deleted. Then usually you put a different status number, like I think a 500 or a 404 or something like that. 404 means that it's no longer there. Okay, so just put a note here. So 404 means this data has been deleted, it's no longer there, so therefore that means it's successfully deleted. Okay, but for now, I'm deleting only one. So again, I find that provider. And this part here, just to get the index of this provider, I put it here again. This is like repeating what is already done here. So really, you could just say index of this provider here. Okay, so you can remove all of these, just put here provider. And that will return the index of that position. And then you can splice it one element from there. And then that's the delete one. The delete all is kind of easy, because delete all is basically you just clear the whole list here. So that means down here, when I do a delete all, I'll just basically providers equal to like that, right? You just empty it. Now, remember that providers, if you look on the very top, is a constant. So we really can't do that. To make that work, we have to change this constant to something else, like the let or the var. I'll put a var here for now. So now when we at the very bottom here, when we we set it, everything's wiped out. And then again, we send a status of 200. And then we'll do a rest send. We'll do a just put here delete it, because there's nothing to send over, so I'll just put all providers deleted or something, so we know what that means. Okay, and here again it will be line 87 will be send and not render. We'll not render anything to the browser, so this will be all send. Make sure you put send here, and send and send and send. All right, I think that should do it. for this one. Now, the next thing that you probably want to do is check for validations. We will validate these and then make sure that the system works correctly, but we'll do that in the next video. Okay, so I think that looks good.